Hello and welcome to this audiobook. Today we bring you the short story, The Competition by Nirmali Hettiarachchi. This is a sharp and satirical story that explores power, pride, hypocrisy, tradition, and social change in a village setting. Through the Vesak Kudu competition, the writer shows how authority can be misused, how rules can be manipulated, and how prestige often matters more than fairness. As you listen, imagine a quiet village preparing for Vesak. Colourful lanterns glowing in the night, and beneath the celebration, hidden struggles for control and recognition. Now, let us begin The Competition by Nirmali Hettiarachchi. The competition. There was no better way to gain prestige than the competition. It was conducted entirely under his auspices, and his authority determined every single detail. The villagers considered it an honor to be selected as participants, and the winner considered himself cock of the roost until the next year. This year the competition was going to be even more prestigious. An important personage had consented to judge. This important personage was to be in the neighborhood on account of the opening of the community center, and so had consented to stay on and bestow his patronage on the competition as well. After all, a peaceful weekend away from the bustle of the city, basking in the adulation of these simple villagers, would be a welcome change. Lately he had taken to sitting out in his garden in the evenings. It was necessary to be available to anyone who wanted to discuss the details of the competition. "Mr. Headman, sir, and how are you today? I've come to ask you about the lighting arrangements." Young Tikira had been to night school, where he had learnt a little bit about electric wiring, and he was determined that this year the Vesak Kudu should be lit with electric bulbs. But the headman preferred to stick to the old ways. Lamps and candles were best, he reiterated. It was not the cost of electricity. The present setup was lavish in donating to religious and cultural activities. It was the fact that the headman did not understand anything about electricity and its complicated systems of wiring, and he felt that giving Tikira in charge of this would in some way diminish his stature. He needed watching that Tikira. These young fellows who picked up a little bit here and a little bit there sometimes forgot to give the elders the respect they deserved. Yes, it was time Tikira's enthusiasm was curbed. "No, Tikira, I'm afraid that won't do at all. The atmosphere of serenity that goes with Vesak has to be preserved in the village. You don't know how beautiful it is when all the kudus are lit, with the soft light of candles and clay lamps. Every year as I walk past with the judge, I feel a great sense of calm settle over me. I feel I am at the still center of this vast cosmos, and I don't want that feeling to change. No. This year too the kudus will be lit in the traditional fashion. But sir, very often the most beautiful kudus are burnt when the candles shift. Don't you remember how badly burnt Podi Banda was when he tried to save his? The poor chap has lost 3 fingers and he can't do any work now." But the headman seemed preoccupied with studying the clouds overhead. Tikira walked away muttering to himself. The next evening the new school mistress came over. She had been in the village only a month, and he had only met her once before when she met him, officially to present herself, as it were. At that time he had pretended he wasn't at all impressed by her, because he had to maintain his dignity, but he hadn't been able to help noticing her generously curved body and ready smile. Now she was walking slowly up to him. He adjusted himself in his chair to look more authoritative, and pretended to notice her only when she was standing right in front of him. "Yes, and what can we do for you?" He smiled benignly. I heard about the Vesak Kudu competition, and I was wondering whether the junior school could enter a Kudu of its own. I know the school sends an entry, but that is done by the senior children, and the young ones are so enthusiastic. Couldn't they send an entry too? Her face lit up as she talked of her little pupils. The old man licked his lips and passed his hand over his glistening pate. Hold on, he said, smiling indulgently. There are strict rules that govern this competition. We abide by these rules every year, you know. I can't go against the rules even to accommodate those sweet young children. Her eyes widened with disappointment. Now I don't say we can't make some minor adjustments so long as we don't break the rules. Let me see. You want to enter 2 kudus from the school. I'll do my best to see if this is possible. Come this way again tomorrow and I'll let you know. I can't take an important decision like this by myself, you know. I have to consult the others in the committee. Please see if it is possible. It will mean so much to the children. He enjoyed the pleading tone of her voice and the appeal in her eyes. I'll try my best, my dear. Come tomorrow and we'll see. The next evening he asked her into the house. She walked in hesitantly. There was no one else inside, and the evening was growing dark. But she had a worthy cause to plead. An old man didn't really frighten her. No one knows what happened inside the headman's house that evening, but the schoolmistress walked out in a huff, and the junior school was denied entry to the competition. The day of the competition dawned, and the visiting dignitary was expected. A limousine with black shutters arrived, and the dignitary emerged. The headman preened himself and stepped forward to welcome him. Forced pleasantries were exchanged, and the personage conducted to the village hall. After the flutter of refreshments, the speeches began. The headman excelled himself. He spoke of the enthusiasm of the youth for religious activities. He spoke of the many significances of the Vesak Kudu competition. He dwelt at length on the amount of work it involved, and modestly thanked the somewhat bewildered committee. The important personage grew restless. He began to entertain the belief that his detour had been a mistake. This headman was insufferable. The villagers looked dumb. Even the food wasn't palatable. By the time the headman came to praising him and naming his many officers, he was yawning conspicuously. At last the headman realized he had spoken for too long and stopped, ending rather vaguely with a reference to a little-known and even less meaningful Jataka tale. He had addressed the chief guest by a variety of titles, ending his speech with, "And now I have great pleasure in asking His Excellency to judge the winners of our prestigious competition." The important personage arose with a look of indescribable boredom on his face. He was beginning to realize that the naive adulation of the populace could be boring. To add to his discomfort, he saw that the school children were lining up for some kind of procession, which apparently would conduct him down the avenue of Vesak Kudus. He hated patting little kids on the head. He hated pretending to be nice to them. He was beginning to regret what he believed to be his altruism. Then the buxom figure conducting the children caught his eye. At that moment she turned round, caught him looking at her, and smiled brightly, almost invitingly. He began to feel lively again. He walked up to the group and began joking with the children, enjoying the giggles this provoked in her. "You've done a lot of hard work training these children." "Oh, sir, it was nothing, it's just," she seemed nonplussed, but out of the corner of her eye she flashed an awareness of his intentions. "How long have you been teaching here?" "Oh, just a few months only, sir. And I'm sure the children have benefited immensely from that short period." She grew bolder. "Well, we have done quite a bit. The children have got involved in quite a few activities during the past few months." The headman was beginning to get extremely worried. She was blatantly stealing his thunder. If you please, sir, the kudus are now lit, and you can see for yourself their beauty, sir. I don't think it will be easy to pick a winner. The villagers have all worked hard. He came up to them anxiously. The beauty of the Vesak kudus were lost on the visiting dignitary. Distractedly, the important man walked past them, giving each only a perfunctory glance. He was beginning to think he'd point his finger at the biggest and declare it the winner when he saw a cluster of delicately glowing lights in the distance. The young schoolmistress was quick to notice the direction of his gaze, and took full advantage of it. That's the kudu the children of the primary school made. Tikira lit it for us with those lovely coloured bulbs. Would you like to see it? We weren't allowed to enter it for the competition, she pouted prettily. But you can come over and see it if you like. Dignitary and lady walked towards the segregated kudu, leaving the headman speechless. She now smiled boldly, and he was open in his expression of desire. The headman recovered quickly and ran after them. Sir, you don't have to bother about that kudu. It's disqualified. It doesn't conform to the rules of the competition. And why is this so? Sir, the rules clearly state we cannot have an entry like this. I will give you a copy of the rules, you can see for yourself. But why? This is a Vesak kudu just like the others. The headman blurted out the first objection he could think of. Sir, it's lit with bulbs. Our rules say we can't have such entries. Oh, but surely, with the times changing, a kudu lit with bulbs can be admitted. The children worked so hard to make it. I think it's so unfair that it isn't allowed. Her eye flashed fire at the headman, and then she smiled her sweetest at the important personage. Surely your excellency can see how unfair it is. His excellency saw just how unfair it was. His displeasure registered in his entire manner. Mr. Headman, sir. His voice cut across the air. I think you should rethink what this competition means, both socially and culturally. I hope, sir, you are not going to throw your book of rules at me for judging this kudu the winner. He gave a short laugh, pleased with what he thought was his sense of humour. For a moment the headman drew himself up to his full height. For a moment the entire village thought he would stand his ground or, in the event of being thwarted by higher but arbitrary authority, resign his post. Then he crumpled. A half-ashamed smile passed across his face, and the villagers, who sensed which way the wind had turned, applauded the winner. After tea the prizes were distributed, and the important personage commented that the little schoolmistress looked like a Vesak kudu herself, in her brightly flowered sari. She looked triumphantly at the audience as she collected her prize. The second and third prizes were of little consequence, and no one ever remembered who won them. Although the visiting dignitary had arranged to spend the night in the village, he now declared that he had pressing business, which made it impossible for him to do so. His limousine with the darkened shutters materialized, and after giving a brief and lukewarm thanks to the headman and committee, he disappeared. Everyone looked around for the schoolmistress, who was going to be the most important person of the year. No one could find her, but someone claimed to have seen a piece of flowered material hanging out of the big black limousine that had spirited away their chief guest. You have just listened to The Competition by Nirmali Hettiarachchi. Through humour and irony, this story reveals how authority can crumble when confronted by influence and changing times. The headman's pride, the dignitary's hypocrisy, and the schoolmistress's ambition remind us that power is often fragile and prestige can shift in an instant. The glowing Vesak kudu becomes more than a decoration. It becomes a symbol of change, manipulation, and social reality. Thank you for listening to this audiobook. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe. For more Sri Lankan and English literature audiobooks. And don't forget to comment your thoughts below. Until next time, happy listening.